And back here in Africa, Senegalese authorities have suspended mobile internet and banned a march against the delayed presidential elections, which were due to be held this year. This comes as President Macky Sall's abrupt decision on February the 3rd to postpone the elections until later this year has sparked ongoing protests across the country, with 3 people reported killed. This pronouncement has resulted in protests, some of which have been postponed, after authorities banned one of the scheduled march, citing logistical concerns. Following this development, United Nations and human rights organizations have voiced their concern about the situation, with a spokesman for the UN's Secretary General Antonio Guterres calling on authorities to respect the rights of Senegalese to demonstrate peacefully. I have joining me African Affairs analyst Patrick Coker to discuss UN's call for the respect of human rights in Senegal. And it's not just that rights that we're discussing. We're also going to look at that pronouncement by the president. Good to have you join us.
Thank you very much.
All right, so let's look at that the announcement which was made by President Macky Sall. First, he postponed the election indefinitely, and then postponed it to the end of the year. That particular pronouncement has now plunged Senegal into a crisis, and many see this as an attempt by the president to extend his mandate. Where do you see this heading?
Thank you. This is an unfortunate development against democracy in Africa, especially a country that has been acclaimed as the most stable democratic space, and indeed very progressive. They've had good transitions, and they've benefited the fruits of democracy. However, it needs to be put on record that the president attempted a third term, but he dropped the idea. However, he was able, or the government was able, to constitutionally postpone or delay the elections until the end of this year. So this is quite a development that, an unfortunate development that has really stirred up serious protests and indeed violence, and the consequences could be dire going forward.
And let's talk about those consequences. We were speaking to this earlier when you said that we're talking about Senegal and its democracy, and many have said that look, Senegal is a resilient democracy in West Africa, perhaps one of the few nations, of course, one of the few nations in West Africa that haven't experienced or suffered a military coup. Now, does this particular move by the president pose a risk of authoritarianism, and is Senegal now a new risk for democracy in Africa?
I think your thesis cannot be faulted. To build on that, it is important that the political elites in Senegal apply themselves to ensure that their very impressive credentials, democratic credentials, do not go into the gutters. There are consequences. First, I must say that the Senegalese military is very professional, and most people have, they say it's unlikely that that military will, there will be incursion of the military in the political space, governance of Senegal. However, there are consequences. Number one, there are political consequences. Mali is contiguous to, Senegal is contiguous to Western Mali, and they share borders. And the Al-Qaeda affiliated militants will see an inroad to Senegal if for any reason the opposition or those who are protesting seek their intervention. Number two, there are serious economic challenges. Senegal's economy is quite robust. And already we're having reports about issues concerning economic stability. For example, their market systems, their telecommunication systems are being invaded, as it were. We also have social issues. Hospitals are shutting down because facilities are getting affected because of the protests. So these are some of the consequences that may impact on this beautiful democracy that has withstood all the temptations of coup plots and indeed authoritarianism of leadership.
The glaring human rights infringement. But when President Sall decided to run for third term, you mentioned the third term agenda earlier, it was ECOWAS that prevailed on him, and then he dropped that ambition. With this new development in that country, where does this leave the regional bloc?
It is noteworthy to mention that the ECOWAS leadership is making efforts, frantic efforts, to still continue its good works to make to prevent any further delay in the elections. In any case, we must also ask ourselves, why has there been a subtle or not subtle, very, very obvious effort to make sure that some political party leaders don't win elections in Senegal? One person in particular is Ousmane Sonko. Everything in the law has been used to prevent him, including sending him to jail. Charges against him. Only recently, he lost an appeal for defaming the government. However, the youths maintain their support and insistence that this is the person they want. So it is a situation that must be well managed to prevent future continued destabilization of Senegal.
And what are the options before? All right, go ahead, please.
Yeah, one thing West Africa must learn from Senegal is, one, the military, no matter the protests, the violence, the confusion, the military continues to remain in the barracks and they maintain their professionalism. That is one takeaway that the West African military or African military must learn.
Political instability is not an excuse for a military coup. But let's talk about the people of Senegal. What are the options before them? They have gone to the streets to protest, and we've seen how violent it has turned. Is the court going to work in their favor, considering that, look, we understand how the leadership in Africa works?
Honestly, the courts, the democratic institutions have not been able to stop the youths from what we have now. I remember in 2022, the same protest occurred, all surrounding one or two presidential candidates. I believe this is the time that alternative dispute resolution instrument must come to play. Senegal has a strong civil society, including religious leaders that help to form and shape political trajectory in that country. I think this is the time that the country must trigger the use of all these instruments to calm the situation. Violence will not solve anything. They can go to the table, discuss, and come to a common ground.
We hope that that's possible anytime soon. Thank you so much for talking to us, as always. African Affairs Analyst Patrick Coker.